What is a risk assessment in ISO 27001? Every control an organization implements, every policy it writes, every security investment it makes should be traceable to one thing: an identified, evaluated risk. The risk assessment is the analytical engine of ISO 27001, the process through which the organization discovers what could go wrong, how likely it is, how severe it would be, and what must be done about it. Without a rigorous risk assessment, the ISMS has no foundation. In this video, we explore the purpose, process, and output of the ISO 27001 risk assessment, including the Clause 6.1.2 requirements. Let us explore the purpose of the ISO 27001 risk assessment and walk through the structured process that Clause 6.1.2 requires. The risk assessment follows a structured 5-step process from asset identification through to risk level determination and the risk register output. Asset identification. Now let us examine the specific requirements of ISO 27001 Clause 6.1.2 and the risk register that the assessment must produce. ISO 27001 Clause 6.1.2 specifies explicit requirements for the risk assessment process, methodology, criteria, and output. ISO 27001 Clause 6.1.2 requires the organization to define a risk assessment process and apply it consistently. Consistency is key. The same methodology must be used each time the risk assessment is conducted so that results are comparable over time, trends can be identified, and auditors can verify that the process is repeatable rather than ad hoc. The methodology must be documented, and the documentation must explain how risks are identified, how likelihood and impact are estimated, how risk levels are calculated, and how the results feed into the risk treatment process. Risk criteria define the benchmarks against which risk levels are evaluated. Risk acceptance criteria define the threshold below which residual risk is considered acceptable to the organization and no further treatment is required. Risk assessment criteria define the scales used for likelihood and impact estimation. Establishing these criteria before conducting the risk assessment, not after, is essential for ensuring that risk evaluation is objective and consistent rather than shaped by the desire to reach a predetermined conclusion about which risks need treatment. Clause 6.1.2 explicitly frames risk in terms of the CIA triad, identifying risks associated with the loss of confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. This framing ensures the risk assessment is comprehensive, covering not just threats to data secrecy, but also threats to data accuracy and system availability. For each information asset within the ISMS scope, the assessment must consider all 3 CIA dimensions and identify the specific scenarios in which each could be compromised. Risk analysis examines the nature and characteristics of each identified risk, and risk evaluation compares the analyzed risk level against the established risk acceptance criteria. Risks that exceed the acceptance threshold must be treated. Risks that fall below it may be retained, though the decision to retain a risk must be an explicit, documented one made by the appropriate risk owner, not a passive decision resulting from the risk being overlooked or deprioritized. ISO 27001 requires the organization to retain documented information about the risk assessment results as evidence that the process was conducted. This documented evidence, the risk register, the risk assessment methodology document, and any supporting analysis, will be reviewed by the certification auditor to verify that the risk assessment is genuine, comprehensive, and has been conducted in accordance with the documented methodology. The absence of documented evidence is treated by auditors as evidence of absence. Let us bring together the essential points about risk assessment in ISO 27001. If you want to conduct a rigorous ISO 27001 risk assessment with a documented methodology, risk criteria, and a complete risk register, our complete Udemy course provides the templates, worked examples, and step-by-step guidance you need. Enroll today. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. See you in the next video.